Hey, good afternoon. Scott Luton, Greg White with you right here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Gregory, how we doing?
We're doing quite well. Naturally, let me just make one quick shout out as we get started to my buddy Micah Tapman, who just tried to call me right before we started here. So sorry, Micah, I'm on the air.
Well, any other announcements you need to make, Greg, here at the First School of Supply Chain?
No, none really, Scott. Thank you though for this opportunity to air that personal note.
Well, hey, here's some good news. We're gonna be back in the studio, getting ready to move in, hopefully, for some in-person in-studio programming starting probably in September.
That's
Good
right,
news.
right? I'm bringing the pizza, you're bringing the beer, right?
Yes, you're not supposed to say that.
Oh, sorry.
I'm bringing the juice boxes.
Yeah, I'm bringing the avocado toast, and you're bringing the kombucha.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But hey, folks, today we've got a special double dose of the supply chain buzz. There's too much news and goings on to get to knock out in a single live stream. So we've got a couple of outstanding guests. Of course, our dear friend Kelly Barner is joining us. She also leads Dial P here at Supply Chain Now, and she's bringing a hard to get guest. We had to go through her agent to get Rose Lee with TechCXO. So stay tuned. We've got some great perspective joining us here momentarily. But Greg, before we do that, we've got to work through some announcements, right?
Yeah, some announcements, and there may be a few people watching.
That's right.
Just keeps growing.
Absolutely. And we're going to say hello to some of those folks here in just a moment. A lot of our good friends are already logged on. But Greg, July 27th, we got this webinar with our friends at Esker and Texas Christian University. Kevin and I are going to be hosting. It's all about digital transformation, not just accelerating your supply chain, but strengthening your supply chain. So y'all join us there July 27th, 1 p.m. Eastern time. The link to join is in the show notes. Bring your POV, bring your voice. We want to hear from you during that session as well.
Yeah.
Greg, have you checked out this mini master class that we've got teed up for July 29th?
I see that. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. I think that'll be interesting. I mean, if you think about who we've brought together for this, we have the world's renowned person, Rodney Apple, who is all about supply chain careers and helping people, and in fact, writing a book about it. And then we've got Peter Bollet, who has end to end done his entire career in supply chain from the time he started until retirement. And now Peter is, I'm sure, happily sharing his experiences with people. I mean, that's really valuable for anybody at any phase of their career, not just folks getting started.
Agreed. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Maria, Crystal, Mark, in addition to Rodney and Peter, and folks, it's free. So we should thank this great panel of folks that's looking to give forward and help people advance through their career and find jobs and work with recruiters. So join us July 29th, 4 p.m. sharp. You can learn more at supplychainnow.com. And then finally, one last announcement, Greg. A big deal coming up in September, the Supply Chain Insights Global Summit, September 7th through the 9th. Supply Chain Now is the exclusive virtual host of the stream from the event. Now, folks, you got to sign up, and there's a little bit of a fee for this one, but for all good reason. 2.5 days you're going to hear from and be part of discussions with some of the movers and shakers across global supply chain. Of course, kind of the MC or the host for this whole shindig, Laura Cesari, the one and only Laura Cesari. So, Greg, what are you looking forward to here in September?
I just think first of all, we get to join. That's great for us, and we're going to sort of simulcast. I'm not sure exactly if that's what we should call it, but we're going to be sharing a lot of this live with the people who register. And the thing that is always valuable about this event, every time that Laura puts it on, is that it is a safe zone for managers, directors, executives, and above to really learn a whole lot from fellow practitioners and really take away something that they can change their business with. That's what's so powerful about it. It's a community event. And it's not about learning how to use your software better. It's about whether you ought to have software, what kind of software. It's even about business process or initiatives, or as Laura posted about today, vendor relationships and things like that. So there's a tremendous amount of value here. If it's not for you, because it is not inexpensive, Scott, what is it? It's
$1,500 to register.
$1,500 to register. So if it's not for you, and it is for somebody that you think could benefit from it, like C-level or director level or above, encourage them to do this. It's the most valuable. I mean, it's the most. What am I trying to say, Scott? It's the best spent $1,500 they will spend all year talking about supply chain. It really is.
Agreed.
There's no agenda other than improving the craft.
That's a great point, and very well said. And on top of everything Greg just shared, you're going to be able to supercharge, super boost your networking, and add a lot of excellent additions to your network at all levels, especially at the executive level. So y'all join us, learn more at Supply Chain Insights, globalsummit.com. The link is in the show notes too. Okay, let's say hello to a few folks, Greg, and then let's bring on our dear friends Kelly and Rose. Let's see here.
Yep.
David is back with us. David, hope this finds you well. Great to see you. I like the new, I guess it's not new anymore, but I like the relatively new headshot, right?
Yeah, he looks like one of my cousins, by the way, man.
Hey, you never know. Maybe y'all are fourth cousins, third cousins, or somewhere. A couple times removed.
Could be.
Mukund,
he's got the hair for it.
That's welcome. Mukund Kumar via LinkedIn. Great to have you here with us. Let us know where you're dialed in from. Of course, Peter Boley, all night and all day. You saw Peter on the panel for our mini master class. Peter, hope this finds you well. Srinivas dialed in from India via LinkedIn. Great to have you back, Srinivas. Looking forward to your POV here today. Of course, we've got Amanda and Allie and Jada behind the scenes making it happen here today. Thanks to all of them. Let's see, who else do we have here? Masawar via LinkedIn. Good morning to you. Great to have you here. Let us know where you're dialed in from. We'd love to make the connection. Kelvin is dialed in via LinkedIn. Kelvin, let us know where you are tuned in from. Marcos from Brazil. Welcome. Good morning. Let's see, our friend Catherine McCleary is back. Catherine, how you doing? Tuned in via LinkedIn. Let us know. Greg, I think she's in one of your favorite cities, Kansas City, I believe, right?
Yes. One of my favorite cities. One.
Well, I know y'all are fellow Chiefs fans, and
yeah, I would say you could see it all back here, but it's all blurry now since I got this cool new camera. But I bet people can make out what that is. And
well, now
we'll bring it forward.
We got to listen to Jada because Jada said no football talk. So that's
true.
We'll get back to that soon enough, though.
Yeah, true.
Hello, Gregory, dialed in from LinkedIn. Great to have you here today. Looking forward to your POV. Muhammad is tuned in via LinkedIn. Hey, let us know where you're dialed in from. Let's see here. Mervyn is back with us. Mervyn from Ireland. Mervyn, I hope this finds your family well, but I hope you got some more recipes up your sleeve too, because we really enjoyed the last one you shared.
Also, be planning that. What should we say? That liquid refreshment tour.
That's right. Finally, Dr. V, it's great to have you back with us from Bangalore, India, via LinkedIn. Great to have you back. You've been, I think Dr. Vias was on our very first live stream, a year and a half ago now.
Wow.
So great to have you.
I'm so sorry for him. Our very first one wasn't very good.
But you know what, Greg, though? Today's live stream is going to be great because it's not just you and me. We've got two heavy hitters with us here today, and I want to welcome in our two guests. I want to welcome in Kelly Barner with Buyers Meeting Point, and of course, host of Dial P, and Rose Lee with TechCXO. Hey, good afternoon. Hey, Rose and Kelly, how are we doing?
Hey, guys.
Great.
The lead time almost got us there, Greg.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that is a challenge is Kelly always dresses better than I do, and I am. Every time she comes on, I want to go grab it.
Are you saying that she was making a last minute wardrobe?
Yes. Grab a better shirt.
Well, welcome, Kelly. Great to have you back. Rose, welcome to your first time with us here at Supply Chain Now. Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys. Thanks for having me attend today.
You bet. And we enjoyed talking baseball and your Padres and your Cubs pre-show. We'll have to we're going to have a sports conversation soon. But first, Rose, before we dive into the buzz and all the cool things we're going to talk about here today, tell us a little about yourself, Rose.
Yeah, sure. Well, now you already let everyone know that I'm from San Diego, since I'm a Padres fan. My brother would be really disappointed if I said some other team. I currently live in Orange County, and I love avocado toast with a poached egg on top of my avocado toast. So if you guys ever come out here, I'll have to make you an avocado toast. We have avocado groves everywhere in Southern California.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah. I am a partner at TechCXO, and the area that I focus in on is on revenue growth. And what TechCXO does, if you haven't heard of us, is we provide on-demand executive support for your organization. And TechCXO started in 2003 in Atlanta, and we've grown to throughout the U.S. as well as the UK. We help startups to mid-sized businesses, from CFOs, now CEOs, COO, myself, a CMO, CRO, and CHROs. So the model is pretty simple. We go in there, it's on demand. We help you where you need us. We start from strategy, of course, all the way to implementation, and we'll scale up or scale back depending on what your needs are.
Outstanding. Well, as we were finding out pre-show, Greg's collaborated with TechCXO. We're going to have Marty Parker, who's part of the team. He's also adjunct professor at UGA in their burgeoning supply chain program. I think he and some bright UGA students are joining us next week. So, hey, the world's getting smaller every day, it feels like, Rose. So great to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Rose, I worked with the company back when it was still called TechCFO, because it was all financial people, right?
Yeah.
And as a startup, that's usually the weakest spot you have. It's great to have a fractional leader there to help you obviously manage finance, but also there's lots of mergers and acquisitions activity and funding activities in a startup. It's a really powerful tool. And as I've kind of got to watch the organization evolve to all of these additional roles. It's really been powerful to see. I think I just mentioned the two folks, Mike Casey and Neil Miller, but I've also worked with, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 other folks as fractional chief revenue officers and chief marketing officers and things like that. It's been powerful stuff.
Greg actually has a TechCXO tattoo on his right arm, Rose. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, it started off as TechCFO, and they rebranded to TechCXO because of that exact same fact that people go in, CFOs, and inadvertently you'll realize there's other needs within an organization. And that's how the company has grown. We have over 100 partners now, from CFOs all the way, like I mentioned, all the way to CHROs, depending on when your needs are.
Congrats. Lots of needs.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. Look forward to you weighing in on some of the topics of the day here momentarily. Hey, before I go to Kelly and get a quick update on all the cool things going on over there, I want to say hello to Azalea Davis is with us. Azalea, stay tuned. We're going to be talking about your neck of the woods very soon. Oscar's tuned in via LinkedIn from Mexico City. Oscar, welcome. Look forward to hearing your POV here today. Gregory, by the way, Trinidad, Tobago, south of the Caribbean region. So, Gregory, great to have you back. And Democenas Perez is with us once again. Demo, I enjoyed your interview not too long ago on Supply Chain Now in Espanol. And Charles Heater is back with us. Charles was bringing the goodness here in recent podcasts. And Peter Bollet, I'm stealing your term, goodness. I think, who was our friend from YouTube that we hadn't seen in a while? I always talked about the supply chain nourishment on these live streams. We'll have to get them back soon.
Went by a code name on YouTube, right?
Yes. We'll track them down and get them back. But in the meantime, Kelly Barner, no shortage of things going on. I think this is clone number 3 of Kelly because there are 7. Actually, there's 7 Kelly Barners. Y'all may not know that, but there's just that level of activity. But what's going on at Buyers Meeting Point, and what's up next with Dial P?
Actually, it's funny. I was thinking about this. It's only about an hour from right now. I'm huddling with my friends at Una. We're getting ready to kick off a quarter of Dial P, of working with them. So shout out to Anthony and Chris and Mackenzie. We're all going to put our heads together. And actually, it was just yesterday that we officially kicked their podcast back off, The Sourcing Hero, which effective this season, I am hosting. And so you have absolutely no idea what's going to happen in any of those episodes. Probably the most surprise we could pack into a procurement-based podcast. But I'm looking forward to having everybody hear the episodes, including Scott, the one that I interviewed you on, and I did rapid fire lightning round questions to sort out all those little personal details everybody wants to know. And then, of course, 3 months of Dial P with my friends at Una.
We look forward to it. Had a blast with you. We've had a variety of conversations here lately. It's been really fun. Always a pleasure. Congrats on all the talk about burgeoning, tons of activity with Kelly Garner and Buyers Meeting.
It's all good stuff, though.
It is. It really is. And by the way, our dear friend, Madam Controller Vicky White says, Kelly, that color is gorgeous on you.
I love you, Vicky.
Rose, that's literally our controller, so we have to be good boys. That's right.
And hello, Tom Holden.
We can't promise you anything free.
Good afternoon, Tom from Louisville. Great to have you here today. What a great city. We went there a few years back, and our oldest still talks about it. Okay, but folks, we got to get into the news. There's a ton of stuff going on here. And I think we're going to start, Kelly. I just realized my slides are out of order. That's a bad thing to have, but I think I've got it right here. So I want to bring in, let's see if this will work right. So up first, we're going to be talking, Kelly, about a story that hit your radar this morning with Lingo, AI-driven workplace communications, looking out over your shoulder. Tell us more about this story here.
So First Pass, this is just another AI-based tech startup that's going on to its second round of funding. Once they've completed the second round, they'll be just shy of $10 million that they've raised this year. That's not as interesting as what this solution does, at least what it's marketed to do, but what it could potentially do. So here's the basic concept. They use rules-based AI that can handle natural language processing to look at platforms like Slack, Microsoft Teams, Zendesk, even email accounts. And it trolls for things that maybe create some trouble. Maybe regulatory compliance, maybe legal compliance. Oh, and then there's that third one, workplace culture. So basically the way it works is if you're typing in a Slack channel and you say something that the Lingo has been trained to view as unfriendly or as risky to the company in some way, stage one is you get a little pop-up that says, hey, that's not really very nice. Maybe you ought to rephrase that before posting. But it also tracks the data.
Before posting.
Before posting, it gives you a heads up. But it also gives sort of sentiment analysis in aggregate, which is fortunately anonymized. But if my understanding of this is correct, it also can flag managers if there's too much trouble. So, on the simplest level, this sounds very basic, right? If you are in a regulated industry, there's legal risk associated with what is said internally on platforms, externally to clients. Makes a lot of sense. You want to cover all the bases, especially with so much of the workforce being virtual now. But when you get down into that workplace culture thing, that's when it just starts to kind of make the hairs on the back of your neck go up a little bit. There's a reason there's a copy of 1984 in that stack of books over there. And so as I was looking through the paper this morning, because this just hit, I'm thinking, okay, yet another investment in an AI-backed startup. Right. Okay, maybe not so interesting on that front, but I don't know. Do you really want people like sorting through and suggesting that the tone of your Slack message to a colleague is not quite what the company wants to hear? I don't know.
Kelly, does it rate any humor or jokes before you send it? Because there might be, I there might be an interested buyer here.
You mean like that
Probably
thing?
does rate it for appropriateness at the very least. I don't know if it has humor, but
I don't know if it does. The example they give on their own website is somebody typing into the Slack channel like, hey, don't be a dinosaur and something, do things the old school way. And the little pop-up says like, oh yeah, that's not, like, how would your mother feel about you? Kind of a nanny kind of message. But you know what? I have to be honest. I think they're missing the boat on the humor angle. Greg and Scott, you guys should definitely reach out and give them that feedback, because it would at least create a more positive user experience for people who are being told that their tone is unacceptable.
Well, and especially evaluating dad jokes, which is our favorite around here, at least my favorite around here. But what's interesting, someone mentioned, Kelly, you or Greg mentioned, maybe filtering out the F-bomb.
That's part of what it does. Yeah.
Yes. There's a dear friend of mine, that when we'd bring him out to networking functions, that was just part of his, vernacular. And it was one of those things after the seventh time of getting, what's going on? I love that guy, but what's the deal with it? But that was a coaching opportunity, right? Because for him and for many environments, that can be, just kind of how a conversation goes. And for many others, it's not, right? So it'll be really interesting to see how this Lingo, I believe is the name of the company, how the investment and the growth and more importantly, perhaps, is how widespread the application and how practical it gets adopted. Greg, I know you're itching at the or chomping at the bit to talk about maybe just the overall M&A environment right now. It's crazy, right?
it is. And the conceptual aspect of this that we're talking about isn't even new. I think it's probably the AI method and the real-time analysis, because companies have been monitoring our emails since email has begun. What they haven't been doing is doing something with it necessarily, and certainly not something preemptively. So, the preemptive nature of this has the potential, despite its downsides, they are not insubstantial downsides. It has the potential to be very, very positive. And the truth is, your email's been being monitored for decades, if you've been using email for decades anyway. So hopefully some aspect of this preemptiveness is positive. And as Kelly said, it is Big Brother, but face it, it's not unlike how your speech is monitored at school by the teachers.
Absolutely.
If you're in their environment, you acknowledged that you'll play by their rules. If they have a new age way of monitoring the rules, you're kind of stuck with it. If you're at home and that happens, that's a little bit different story.
And it's different.
But AI, of course, is very hot for investment right now. And here is the not so secret of AI. AI is not hard to do these days. And in fact, it's not even expensive to enable these days. It has long ago, in terms of development talent, been democratized and also made to be very cost effective. There's lots of AI talent out there. The difficulty comes in evaluating these companies in an M&A environment is, do they own or did they construct their own AI, or are they merely using a TensorFlow or an AWS AI tool that they have trained? Because if you are doing that, you don't really have any intellectual property. So this is one of the challenges. And if you listen to my episode with Saint Azorlu, this is one of the things that we talk about. It's really hard to find technology companies who actually have intellectual property.
What a great lesson learned there, Greg. Y'all check out. Maybe Amanda can drop that episode in the comments. But I want to bring in Rose. But before I do, Azalea says this is like supply chain Sesame Street. Hey, how about that? I love it. And we got a lot more to come, Azalea. All right. So Rose, whether you want to comment on what Kelly and Greg just were talking about, AI or investment, or equally as important, marketplace communication, because we've learned a lot in recent months, right?
Yeah, this past year has been a learning curve for all of us, just to really understand what is necessary in communicating with your internal team. There was an article that was in Forbes on April 27th this year, and it was talking about the 2021 turnover tsunami. And what is the problem and what's the cause and what's happening and what business leaders need to be prepared for. And I think what's happened is this last year when we all were locked down and working from home, people started thinking about their work-life balance, the culture, does it fit in with who they are? And 52% of employees are planning to look this year. And I'm sure we've seen all that in LinkedIn and different places. And why are people looking? It's really basic. So I hear what you guys are talking about, AI, and my background is technology, and I get excited when I hear about technology. But what I'm going to talk about is really back to the basics, really increasing employee engagement, and being able to communicate effectively. And I think this year, not only from Zoom calls, and I know a lot of times we're meeting with each other online, but you also have to have these really honest conversations and being transparent on a one-on-one basis with your team, within the overall organization. And it's talking more than just the finance side of business. It's really getting into what matters and what separates you from the rest of your competitors and other companies. And it's really understanding that, or offering training opportunities, putting value and showing value to your employees. This is old school. It's not, all this other big brother technology, but this is just really old school human interaction, the best way that you can manage that type of communication. This is a philosophy I've practiced for over 30 years to really show that you care. And that's when people want to stick around. They want to be a part of your team. They want to be a part of your organization.
Love that, Rose. And there's some timeless leadership lessons, Greg and Kelly, that are just that. They're timeless, despite the changes in the environment and some of the challenges we're seeing. And Greg, of course, as we've talked about a lot, best practices change all the time, right? Because what worked yesterday is not guaranteed to work today.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, but these timeless lessons of leadership and leadership practices, what's old is new again. Isn't that right, Greg?
Yeah, it is. I mean, and I empathize with both points of view. I mean, Kelly doesn't want somebody you don't want somebody looking over your shoulder. Sorry, I'm not going to talk about you like you're not here. You don't want somebody looking over your shoulder, right? You're from the original bastion of freedom, right? The Boston Tea Party, right?
Yeah.
So I think there is a place for that, and we need people to be watching us as we slowly approach this line. As Leia kind of goes to that point, what if AI gets so smart that it doesn't just decide it doesn't like your tone, it doesn't like your point of view, right? Which is easy, by the way, as we have all evolved over time to be sensitive to that, particularly now. It's easy to see AI getting there. It is just a child. Again, this is the way I always think about AI. It does what it's taught, and depending on how it's taught, it can be taught bias as well. So we have to really arm ourselves against that. But at the same time, to Rose's point, there is a certain amount of cultural enforcement. Enforcement's probably a strong word, but whatever. Cultural enforcement. But I think it's worth it because, a company needs to guard nothing more preciously than the culture of their company. But that culture needs to have a solid tempering for variances of opinion and point of view, right? As long as it's kind and accurate.
Yeah. I think the tricky part ends up being that people are so wily, right? And like you guys say, we all know the reality. Everybody's been reading and monitoring our emails forever, right? It's not a new concept, but having it continuously put in your face, like how many times a day as you're typing in Slack, are you getting these little prompts? Maybe people start to worry, after how many prompts do I get referred to HR for like a communications refresher? And I think what I would start to think about as a company potentially putting this in place is not only how does it make people feel these little cues, but, speaking of Boston, there's an old time Boston politician that had this great expression, and it's like, don't speak when you can whisper, don't whisper when you can nod, don't nod when you can wink, right? It's this whole progression of how to be as discreet as humanly possible, especially when you have something strong to communicate. And in a way, it's a little bit like telling your teenager they can't date. if you restrict people's speech and get up in people's faces about their communication style too much, especially on something informal like Slack, where hopefully, at least in certain channels, customers aren't present, you're kind of driving people into live conversation where you can't monitor it at all.
That's a good point.
And so that's part of the delicate balance. If you want to teach people that you can't appropriately handle having access to their communications, if you do have to protect your company against legal and regulatory risk. But if you don't trust your employees, and if you're constantly pointing out to them that you don't trust them, it's just back to Rose's point about employee experience. It creates kind of a funny vibe, I have to think, although it might get people back to the office. If that's a silver lining. Companies having trouble getting people back to the office.
Conversations. That's exactly the thought I had when you said that. It could.
So when you go meet in a park, right, and you sit on the park bench and you crinkle the paper bag your sandwiches in so that like the bugs in the bushes can't pick up your conversation.
Right.
So much to dive into here. I want to share a couple comments, and then we're going to move to this next story. But excellent. I love the conversation, Greg, Rose, and Kelly. So many great points made. Mervin says, hey, imagine a negotiation with a client via email with AI monitoring you and telling you to rephrase. How about that? I'd buy that.
Or monitoring the negotiation with the client and giving you some justification for your phrasing, or right, something like that. That could happen as well.
Agreed. Terminator, Peter says, the movie is not as far-fetched as folks make it out to be. How about that? Andy, welcome, Andy. Let us know where you're tuned in from. Via LinkedIn says the major drawback is that the consultants are not certain of the ROI for these cool technologies with a K. I love that. And I agree, it's not an easy task. Agree with Rose. Peter adds, frankly, why you never negotiate over email. That's interesting. I know I've done some of that. I like, for my communication style, I like the stop, pause, and contemplate aspect of the email cadence. But it doesn't replace a really good phone call, and oftentimes a really good direct phone call, which I don't know about y'all, but it's been some of my best learning moments as an entrepreneur, as a leader. Okay, so we've got to move on to this next topic, lead times. Lead times. I want to, but as I tee this up for Greg White, I was in a store yesterday. I'm on this post-vacation diet, right? And I got the post-vacation diet blues. I don't know if y'all can relate, but picking up fruit juice, like the 100% natural stuff, right? One of our favorite local brands is Arden Bees, I think is based here in Georgia. Anyway, so I'm at the store. A lady pulls up beside me with her cart, and she's looking around. She can't find this very specific carrot blend of juice. And she makes this comment of, gosh, they're out of it again. And whenever I see it, I grab these 2-gallon jugs because it may be a few weeks before I see it again. And it's just, Greg, it's just one of those latest moments, right, that we're probably having just about every day, if not, every hour, it seems, where everything we want, like we're kind of used to in a spoiled manner, isn't quite always there. And lead times and product availability, these things are continuing to be big challenges, right?
Yeah, and it appears getting worse. I mean, we talked before we came on the air about Kelly's beautiful backdrop that she has there with her desk and bookshelf and all that. And I think you said, Kelly, it took 8 months.
It did take 8 months. And the hardest part about some of these lead times, which I also felt the impact of, is that nobody knew with any accuracy how to tell me what that lead time was going to be. I was told it might be like 60 days. I'm like, okay, 2 months. 2 months and 8 months are very different. Now, for me, selfishly, I wanted my bookcase. But if you're a business and this is actually holding up a production line, or it's holding up your ability to deliver to a client, that is an entirely different level of problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And this article is talking predominantly about that. But, in my inimitable fashion, I wasn't bounded by the topic. It's just what did it make me think of, right? And because they were talking a lot about MRO, about indirect materials, the things that keep the lines running, and the portions or the products that go into a final and finished goods, and those things, and how those lead times continue to rise. And what they talked about were, what it made me think about was, well, what did we expect? Right? We literally ceased the global commerce virtually overnight. And this is going to the economy would have restarted in any situation more like a Model A than an AMG. It's going to take some cranking, and it's going to take messing with the timing and the carburation and having that foot on the starter at just the right time. Yes, cars used to be started by foot. While your neighbor was cranking at the front end too, by the way. So it is literally, it's going to take that kind of time. And then you throw on top of it, the container shortages and whether they be accidental or intentional, all of the things that have driven up freight rates. And then you throw on top of it the governments of the world paying people an additional $600 a week to stay home. Right? What did we expect to happen? And I think I was thinking about the impact of that. And labor is unquestionably the largest impact to the supply chain. Right? I mean, if you've been out of your house or you've talked to anyone who is in business, that is their number one discussion is, I can't get people to cook. I can't get people to drive. I can't get people to run registers. I saw a Burger King closed at 9:00 last night. Right? Aren't most Burger Kings open almost 24 hours a day? I mean,
I'm thinking about a Whopper now, Greg. Oh man.
No, back to the carrot juice. Go back to the carrot juice.
So much for your diet.
With avocado on it, which is the good kind of fat, by the way.
Yeah.
And by the way, Rose, a California burger. Right?
Lettuce, protein burger.
California burger in the 80s that had avocado on it. Delicious. Sorry, now I'm hungry.
Now I want a burger.
Right. We can get a bean burger or something like that. And then you pile on things that always happen in the supply chain, the usual vendor shortages and weather, which happens every year but made news this year because of the inherent fragility of supply chains when the storm in Texas occurred or when Elsa occurs and things like that. Because when the supply chain is already fragile and those natural consequences occur, by the way, this year was not the first time that a ship has gotten stuck in the Suez Canal. But the supply chain was already so fragile, and of course, all news must be hyperbolic, because as I say here frequently, traditional media is dying, and they're desperately clinging for ratings so they can sell advertising. So when you think about all of those things, then you can see why the lead times have trouble, and because we have literally paid, at least in the States, I can't speak for other governments, but in the States, we have literally paid people to stay home. 51.9%, this is an interesting number considering the numbers you were tossing out, Kelly. 51.2 or 51.9% of people say that they don't want to go back into the workforce because they're afraid of COVID. Right? COVID is in many states at a lower level than March of last year when we shut everything down. And in many states or in many places, the infections are actually going down. Now, I know we have this new Delta variant. I can't really speak to that. I'm not a healthcare expert, but I would argue that a significant portion of those people who are afraid of COVID would be a lot less afraid of COVID if they weren't making $46,000 a year to stay home.
And then everybody who is working, they're all new.
Right.
Like back to your point, Greg, if you have ventured out of your house recently to go to a supermarket, a wholesale club, or restaurant, apparently every single employee, Rose, you're saying 51% or 50% of people say that they're going to look this year. Well, apparently over the last 4 months, every single person in America changed their job because nobody knows what they're doing. And you're trying to be patient, right? You're like, I'm just so grateful to be in a restaurant. Thank you. But no one knows what they're doing. They've never worked together before. There's no critical mass of people that have been in the roles getting this stuff done. And so God love these business owners. They're bringing in whoever they can bring in. But it takes a while to ramp these things up and kind of get the people machine clicking. Yeah. And I think it's going to be a wacky summer. from a labor perspective, and I think it's going to drag into the year, even as some of these other issues start to go away.
Undoubtedly. And and we're on Lambda now, Greg, heading fast as Zeta. And that, we talked about this the other day, Kelly, trying to find, there's so much information out there, right? It's information overload, and trying to really find good, accurate, actionable information can be very, very challenging. And let's face it, despite what you and Greg both have shared, there's still, there's a lot of fear, and it could be lack of information. It could be, personal set of circumstances. It could be, I think, as Catherine mentions, Missouri might be one of those places that has had some challenging statistics when it comes to, the kind of the COVID recovery. And of course, our friends overseas, wide disparity of kind of what the current status quo is. But the good news is, as we're going to talk about here momentarily, there is, here in the States, we are able to get out more and able to enjoy just those small things. Kelly, you mentioned eating out and dining out and enjoying each other's company. Greg, you and I will be together this afternoon. Man, how we've missed those simple things. So let's do this, though. Rose, I want to give you a chance to kind of weigh in on anything here before and Greg, I'll give you the last comment on this lead time story. But Rose, anything sticking out for you here based on what we've talked about with lead times and product availability? We were talking porch furniture before we went live here today. Any insights from you?
I'm experiencing the same thing. I'm not ordering porch furniture for next summer, but
summer after that. It might be the summer after that now. Just in the time we've been on this show, lead times are extended.
But I'm experiencing the same thing. I have a built-in refrigerator, LED light went out. They're not supposed to go out. 6 months later, I'm still receiving emails about the LED light is back ordered. But you know what, though? One thing that they've done well, this company, it's annoying. My lights are still out, but they're telling me and they're communicating every single week. I apologize. And it's the same thing when we went back to talking about internal communication. How do we keep our employees so we don't have all these newbies that really don't understand the company culture or understand how to serve a customer? It's really that internal communication, talking to each other, and making sure that people are happy. There's a lot of folks, not only are people looking because they're sitting there evaluating, do I like this culture? Do they like me? Mm-hmm. Do they value me? I mean, there's also people that were forced into early retirement and they're kind of like, I'm done, I'm out. I'm not going back.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that happening right now. And I think we just need to be patient with each other. It's going to take some time. I think, Kelly, you're right. It's going to go into this fall. Well
said, Rose. And there a wide variety of dynamics at play for sure. Okay, so Greg, I want to give you a final comment. Before I do, though, as Amanda has pointed out, I completely botched our favorite brand of juice. I think what I did, I combined Cardi B with Arden's Garden and came up with a new brand, RDB. It's Arden's Garden is the juice that's based here in Georgia that we like so much. So, all right. But Greg, your final word on.
It's okay. They didn't pay for that spot anyways.
That's true. My oldest daughter is going to get a kick out of that. But Greg, your final comments on lead time stuff.
It's time to get back to work. I mean, there are plentiful and lucrative jobs out there, and people are staying home in droves. I recognize that people had to, or maybe were forced to leave their jobs, but that time is long past. There are plenty of available jobs, and they're paying more than they would have because of competition, right? And particularly because all of this influx of capital. I mean, look, the inflation that we're seeing and the demand that we're seeing that exceeds the supply in many cases is because people have more disposable income, right? There's this term now, look it up, Google it, revenge travel. They're calling it revenge travel, where people are going, I feel like maybe subconsciously I am revenge traveling. I traveled like 3 weeks last year, right? But I felt like it was necessary every time. But, there are people trying to get their lives back to some sense of normalcy or some sense of health that they feel in many, many ways. One of the best ways to do that is to be productive in your mind and in your body, to be productive. And I think it will come back around, but it's really going to take, what is it now? I think it's like 31 states now are refusing the additional $600 a week from the federal government. And 3 states are being sued by people who aren't looking for jobs on unemployment, which is another requirement, by the way, to still receive those benefits. So it's going to take taking that money, the government money, out of their hands and placing requirements, as we have had forever on unemployment, to actually look for a job, to get people back to work.
So, Kelly, I've got our next topic for a little side project you and I have been working on, this new series. We're going to have to get Greg and maybe Catherine together. And
it's not about the juice, is it? I don't drink carrot juice.
No. I think Greg.
I don't do anything with carrots.
There's a much fuller conversation I think to be had along what Greg's talking about with the policies and the workforce policies that a variety of governments have embraced. So a lot of good stuff there. We'll save that for next time. Partially because this last topic's mine. I want to share some interstate goodness.
Make sure you get your
Sorry. I'm ready. No. This is why we do this, right? You never know where the conversation is going to lead. I really appreciate everybody's comments. We can't get to. Paul makes a great statement about isolationism. I think we all maybe underestimated the impact that might have pre-pandemic. I think that's a fair comment. Catherine and many others say some fair things. But for the sake of today, let's move forward. Let's talk about interstates. And Kelly, I'm ready for the counterpoint here. But
okay.
Let me have my moment in the sun just for a second, okay? So this is pretty cool. So, we've been talking about infrastructure, feels like for years, but certainly here in recent months as Congress looks poised to do something. And I think from a fun point of view, thankfully we are here in the States at least able to get out. And of course, if you're getting out traveling somewhere, you're probably on interstates, right? I know we just spent a bunch of time on interstates coming back, or going to Florida and coming back a week or two ago. But what's also needs to be pointed out when we talk about infrastructure, interstates and some of these obvious examples are only just a part of the equation, right? Infrastructure holistically, there's a ton that needs to be addressed, at least in my take. Hopefully a portion of that with the new legislation that's coming. But this nonprofit called TRIP, you see its logo there in the corner. It's a, as it says, National Transportation Research Nonprofit. They have offered up a pretty deep bit of research here lately, just published in the last week or two. And I wanted to share some things that you may not know about our interstate system, Kelly, Rose, and Greg. So let's dive in. So first off, it was built in 1956. That makes it 65 years old. The Dwight D. Eisenhower National System of Interstate and Defense Highways. It's been called, did you know, the most ambitious public works project built since the Roman Empire, Kelly. The Roman Empire. Greg, how many miles do you think make up? Take a wild guess. The interstate highway miles. How many miles?
I don't know, 200,000?
Close. 48,482.
Oh.
And I say close.
Wow.
Round
I'm very
down.
optimistic, aren't I?
Close is in not close.
Did you say close?
Those almost 50,000 miles, of course, carries a huge part of the $18.9 trillion in goods shipped from sites in the U.S. each year. So let's look at the top states. If you live in Georgia, like two of us do, others with roots here, you spend a bunch of time. But this is so from this TRIP research, they broke down where the worst interstate conditions are. Look, if you live in Hawaii, 23% of your interstate miles are rated as in poor condition. I was surprised, Greg, not to see Georgia on really this bad top 20 list. I'm not surprised to see South Carolina, as I certainly feel the bumps whenever I drive back home, and I hear a lot of feedback about the miles, about the state of the roads there. Secondly, bridges, folks. Did you know the average age of interstate bridges is 46 years old? 3% of all interstate bridges, and think of it like overpasses and stuff, were rated in 2019 as being in poor or structurally deficient position. So if you look at these states of kind of where that 3% is, Azalea, West Virginia, 13% of those bridges rated as in poor or structurally deficient or can be found in West Virginia, 12% in Rhode Island. Who would have thunk it? That wouldn't have been top for me. Nothing in Georgia here once again, Greg. Have you, raise your hand, folks. Raise your hand if you've ever spent any time standstill traffic on interstates. I think all four of us can raise our hands, right? I was kind of surprised with this weekend. I was kind of I gotta share this here. Peter says pothole avoidance in Quebec is a sport in the spring. I love that, Peter. So let's see here. So this was kind of surprising to me when you look at this next bit of what percentage of the interstates in all 50 states is what they deem congested. California rose number one. 80% of your interstates are deemed congested. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, yes. Every day, even on the Sunday. And we have 6-lane highways.
Yeah.
Freeways.
I am jealous of that. Well, also look at this. So interstate system makes up 2.6% of all highway miles in the states, but 26%. The interstate carries 26% of all travel. And then finally, one more thing I want to point out here as we start to wrap up is specific bottlenecks. So the study kind of pinpointed at least 20 top bottlenecks. Greg,
Atlanta's in the top 5 twice.
And
how is Boston not there?
I was kind of surprised, Kelly. Kind of surprised there. But this little portion here is known, kind of very roughly known as Spaghetti Junction, one of the probably numerous places referred to as Spaghetti Junction. I've officially spent 42% of my adult life sitting right there in that square. But, it's where 285, if y'all, plenty of folks travel to Atlanta, 285 meets at 85 northbound. There's been a ton of growth via Gwinnett County and further places north there. Ton of congestion. But yeah, Greg, to your point, that's just one of the two bottlenecks in the top 4 that this study has put out there, according to the folks over at TRIP. So, Amanda, I think we're going to drop the link to the study in the comments so folks can kind of check out all the information for themselves. But, again, folks, not to be too simplistic, I grew up in Aiken County, South Carolina. I-20 has bisected our county, and it was how we got to the state capitals where I went to school. Growing up on interstate, we just assumed it was there. And I think we can easily forget about this. But Greg, Rose, and Kelly, you've got a few counterpoints as it relates to the calls for the billions and billions of dollars that our interstates may need, right?
I do. And it's actually interesting. So I'm going to start in, a conciliatory way by actually offering up a nice statistic that backs up what you've been talking about. This is from a Wall Street Journal article that published, I think, on July 4th. By one estimate, the U.S. economy would be 3.9% smaller today without the interstate highway system that we got back in the 50s and 60s. So that's the good news. The bad news is that we already have the vast majority of the interstate infrastructure that we're going to get. Most of the investment that we're talking about making now, which I believe represents about 20% of the current infrastructure bill that's sort of working its way through Congress, is, like you had said, crumbling bridges, potholes, that kind of thing. So it's a little bit like renovating your bathroom or kitchen to sell your house. You don't get that money back in terms of economic growth, GDP. What you get is a house that you can sell, or what you get in the case of infrastructure is roads that people feel better about, are happy about, do less damage to equipment, result in less insurance claims, that kind of thing. But if we're actually looking to say that putting this money into the economy, other than the jobs benefit, right, and the local benefit, specifically when that money is invested, long term, it's just simply maintenance that needs to be done. There's not actually economic growth that comes from that that's sustainable. So unfortunately, this is money that, while it does need to be invested, at least in some portion, maybe not going where they think it's going to go or in the amount that they're planning to spend, it does need to be spent. These repairs have to be made.
Right.
But from an economic growth standpoint, we're not going to get that money back in terms of GDP, just like you're not going to get the money back on your house at the point of sale that you put into, tiling your bathroom or replacing everything in your kitchen. It needs to be done, but the return's not there.
Gotcha. I appreciate that completely. I'm going to get Rose and Greg to weigh in on anything y'all might have found interesting or any personal experiences or your take on, this infrastructure bill and what they're talking about in D.C. Rose, any comments, sir?
Well,
but no pressure.
So I hear what you're saying, Kelly, but selfishly, I think we really need, maybe not the entire portion, but we need some investments in our roads. They're 50 years old. And if I lived in West Virginia and I'm a little concerned about going over a bridge, and especially in light of everything that's happening right now, I think we need to put some money into the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And the advantages are there. We just may not get the economic payback that we're hoping to get.
Well,
and I just remodeled my kitchen and my bathroom, so I'm hoping to get more money out of my house if I ever sell.
Sorry, Rose, I didn't know.
She doesn't miss a beat. I tell you, Rose fits right in. I tell you. But well said, Rose. There is, folks look at this differently, right? And I really appreciate, Kelly, that different angle, because I think there are some out there that may be expecting the ROI to look differently. I'm thinking about some of the overpass problems that we've seen in just recent years that is, that I'm hoping speeds up the action and the right action, right? Because we're all concerned. We want those dollars to be spent in a way that we get stuff rather than, some of the other things. But Greg, Greg, you never tell us how you really feel. And I want to push you to really, give us a firm opinion here. But what's your take?
Dig deep, Greg.
Yeah, well, we have completely misspent infrastructure dollars to this point. What we don't need is more investment. We need better investment. The funding for infrastructure has been adequate to keep our infrastructure up to date for the 60 years that our interstate system has been around. We have misspent or brother-in-law projects or completely wasted the funding to keep these roads in place. And I have to tell you, it frightens me to no end to give federal and state governments more money to waste. And if I was in California, Rose, I would be particularly afraid of that. And I'm afraid enough of it in Georgia, right? But, let's, to that point, by the way, in Georgia, we have the only interstate highway in America that does not cross a state line. Interstate 16 goes from Macon, Georgia to the coast to Savannah. Okay. We have an interstate highway that doesn't cross a state line. Should interstate funding have paid for that? Absolutely not. Why did it? Because we have very, very powerful politicians in Georgia, right? Thank you, Zell Miller, or whatever senator got that Pork Barrel project through. And it is projects precisely like that have wasted trillions and trillions of dollars on infrastructure. So do we need it? Yes. Do I have any faith that our U.S. government will spend it appropriately? Absolutely none.
So that was an intrastate, not an interstate.
That's right. We should and also, it's the worst, Rose, until recently, by far the worst interstate highway that we have in Georgia, right? That just, my daughter, I had to go down that road to get to my daughter's university, and every time I did it, I had to put in headphones because Just so it's terrible.
So,
Road is terrible.
I wish we had another hour. I know,
Sorry.
Kelly, you've got a hard stop at 1. So, as much as I've enjoyed you and Rose and the conversation here, we'll have to have y'all both back. And Rose, thanks so much for joining us here today. Kelly, of course, we'll see you back on Dial P amongst other things really soon. But really quick, let's make sure folks know how to connect with you. So Rose Lee with TechCXO, how can folks connect with you?
Yeah, you guys can find me on LinkedIn, and it's Rose K. Lee 1.
Wonderful.
LinkedIn.com, RoseKlee.1.
It's just that easy. And I think we'll have her information in
Well,
the
I'll
show
be
notes, especially on replay. And Kelly, how can folks connect with you?
Same deal. You can find me on LinkedIn either as Kelly Barner or as Buyers Meeting Point. Dial P now has all of its accounts set up across LinkedIn and Twitter. So absolutely find me, follow me one of those places, and send feedback. I can take it.
Well,
We'll have a conversation.
That is right, and we're going to have a fuller conversation on some of these topics that deserve a more passionate, more time to be spent on all the different things we got to unpack. But regardless, today was a blast. Thanks so much, Rose Lee with TechCXO and Kelly Barner with Buyers Meeting Point and Dial P. We'll talk with you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, Gregory, man. Tons of comments. I want to share a couple of these. I would love to have gotten to them when Kelly and Rose were still with us. But let's make up for lost time here. I want to share. Let's see here. Nirfad says, hopefully the maintenance and construction of newer and better roads doesn't just include sealant from Home Depot or Lowe's to patch the cracks. Excellent point there. And Susan says, and hello, Susan Nicholas, I hear Gorilla Glue is very reliable. Let's see here. Azalea says, with where we're heading with tourism, she thinks it's necessary, the added infrastructure spending. Looking at West Virginia accidents because of poor road conditions. Let's see here. Peter talks about flipping homes, his success there, which he is very handy from a construction standpoint. He's shared some of his projects.
Apparently very strong if he can flip an entire home.
Yes. Catherine says, hard to attract businesses and people when they can't get safely to economic centers. That is a very fair point. Let's see here. Tom Holden says, how much road/bridge repair can be expected with only 20% of the funding bill? And then finally, Kenton. And hello, Kenton. Great to have you here via LinkedIn. Says delivery dates for high-end bikes, more than $3,000. That is high end. Used to be readily available are at August and September 2022 for orders placed now. How about that, Greg?
Right. Our friend Todd Raines has been keeping me apprised of bike parts because he's an avid rider. I should say more than avid, obsessed, excessive rider. And also he's in the auto parts business, and he has been seeing his fill rates reduce to I think he mentioned for brake parts, 13.5% fill rate.
Wow.
Ordered 100, got 13. Okay.
Wow.
So yes, that is a very real problem.
Nirfad says, Greg, tell us how you really feel. I'm not convinced. That's funny, Nirfad. Hope this finds you well. I've enjoyed the family picks.
If you don't like my comments on the U.S. government, you sure don't want to hear my comments on Canada's.
Oh, goodness. We'll save that for Tequila Sunrise for sure. Amanda says, nearly ran out of gas, headed to a bachelorette party when I was 8 months pregnant on I-16 because there's one gas station from Macon to Savannah.
Now there are many, many more. It's not nearly as drowsiness or generating as it used to be, Amanda. So it's safe to go to your next bachelorette party.
I'm just so proud that my wife at 8 months pregnant was not going to turn down a good party. So
yeah. Well, pin the tail on the donkey is really fun.
All right, a lot of good stuff there. Sorry we can't get to everybody's comments and questions. We're a few minutes over already, but outstanding session. Y'all connect with Rose Lee with TechCXO and Kelly Barner with Buyers Meeting Point. Of course, tune in to Dial P, third Tuesday of each month, 12 noon Eastern time. Looking forward to collaborating with our friends at Una. And Greg, I'll give you what's one point heard here today, one take something folks need to be attuned to. What would be your final comment here today?
Couple of things. One, it's really interesting to hear the Boston perspective from the California perspective, right? And to see the variance of issues that we have in the States. As I have told many people, and I have said frequently on this show, it is the United States of America. States in the past have been small countries, and effectively what we have in the U.S. is 50 small countries trying to work and live together, sharing a common currency, common roadways, a common security and army and all of that to keep them safe. But I think it's hard to overstate the impact of this being a democratic republic, not a democracy, by the way. That's a fallacy that we still teach in our schools. But this is really a representative republic of 50 countries who have effectively come together for common security and other infrastructure type benefits. So to see the variance from state to state, it is really a collection of 50 cultures, of 50 points of view. And of course, there are points of view within each one of those. So it's really, really interesting to see like Catherine's take on this versus Rose's take versus Kelly's take and my take and yours, Scott. It's, we are fortunate to be in a place that is so diverse. If you don't like the state you're in, you can go to one that fits you better, right? And literally,
right across
the border,
right? And have the discussion publicly and with the freedom to say what's on our mind. That's something.
Not so much that anymore, but hopefully that comes back.
Folks, finding common ground, it can be found. I can assure you. But great discussion here today. I agree with you, Azalea. I'd love another hour. I'd love to dive deeper on some of the things we couldn't hear today with Rose and Kelly and Greg and many others in the skyboxes. So, but folks, join us for these upcoming events we shared on the front end. Give us some feedback. Of course, you can reach out to Amanda, reach out to any of us on social media. We'd love to, if there are topics that you see kind of maybe gaps in our programming, things or people or companies you want to hear more from. We'll take that feedback, we'd welcome it. Feedback is certainly one of our lifebloods here. Join us for the webinars. Join us for the sessions. You're not going to want to miss the mini master class with Peter Boley and many others. It's going to be really good stuff, well worth the price of free admission. And most importantly, whatever you do, money back guarantee, Greg, whatever you do good, give forward, be the change that's needed, and we'll see you next time right here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.